Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day and market recap. Oh, I don't have my camera on. Sorry about that. There we go. There's the camera. So welcome to the end of week video. Happy Friday, everybody. I'll try to keep this video brief. I did a longer video yesterday, and you can find that on YouTube, where I talked about some of the events for next week. I'm not going to go into the details of that because I don't like to repeat myself at least that many times. But I talked about the CPI report, the calculation of the CPI report. I talked about a little bit about the Fed meeting for Wednesday, and quadruple witching, which includes index rebalancing for the S&P and NASDAQ. So by all means, please make sure that you go through and you review that video if you want details about some of those things that I just mentioned. By the way, going for Wednesday's meeting, there's about a 31% chance that they're going to raise interest rates on Wednesday. Again, this is always subject to change and always subject to new market information. So that Tuesday CPI report, could bump that one way or another, depending on what we get. So 30% chance. And again, it kind of looks like they might skip this meeting, but again, it's up in the air. This is a decent percentage. It's a 30%, a little bit over a 30% chance. I mean, that's something. But if they don't do it, notice that for July, there's an 86% chance that they're going to raise interest rates. So that is going to be interesting, whether or not that happens. And the CPI, the only thing I'll bring up for the CPI report is what they're expecting, because I think it takes a while for to see this, but they're looking for the month over month to be 0.2%. All right. And ex food and energy 0.4. All right. So, I don't know anything about how, the calculation and the timing and so forth, but I would think that's probably a 0.2, 0.3, a 0.1. Sure. I think that would be, would make sense to me in terms of what we see for the number. But again, that's on Tuesday. On Monday, we don't get anything. So let's talk a little bit about today's price action. I'll go through the charts. I'll talk about a couple quick observations, but it kind of felt like a profit-taking day, right? The market kind of launched higher in the first 15, 20 minutes of the day, and it was welcomed by sellers. Maybe some of those market participants feeling that hey, this is a great opportunity to kind of put some money in the pocket before that big week of events. And by the way, this is how the calendar is shaping up for June, right? So we have 7 days basically it's the 9th, but we've had 7 trading days so far for the month, right? And we'll have a day off. I guess we have the 19th off. We've got a full week next week and a big week, and then a couple more weeks of June after that. So we'll have 1, 2, 3 more weeks of June. So a long way to go for this month. I'm going to talk about performance for the week too. And I'll talk a little bit about performance for the month so far, even though it's just a little bit more. But some interesting things when I look at the performance for the week, some oddball kind of sectors outperformed. That's the way I'm describing it. So today the VIX was up a little bit. The small caps underperformed again. They were down 80 basis points. The Qs were essentially flat, even though, like I said, they launched up a little bit, maybe trapped some buyers there, myself included, because I bought something looking for further upside today and didn't get it, but that's fine. I was also a seller on the open too of some names as well. AMD was one of those. But for the best groups for the day, that went up over the day, a little bit of healthcare names. We have that Biogen announcement that came out. Whenever there's a drug announcement and that there's a stock halted, always go and figure out like what the weight is in the ETF. Keep in mind, XBI, everything is roughly the same weight because it's an equally weighted ETF. IBB is the one that you want to look at. It's market cap weighted, so if it's a larger name like Biogen, Biogen is 4% of that ETF, and it will move. Back in the day when I used to be an ETF trader, when names used to get halted more frequently, what I would do is imply a price, because IBB will move, right? And it used to be pretty accurate, right? So, if a name had a really good drug study, IBB would shoot up, and you would kind of do a back of the envelope calculation to figure out, based on the weight of that name, what IBB was implying, even though the name wasn't halted, right? Again, you can do that with ETFs, right? Remember how an ETF always works. It's a function of the underlying names. Some people, I always throw a little bit of these ETF tidbits in these videos because that's what I used to do. But never look at just the name of an ETF or just the volume in the ETF. I see that a lot by some people. They're like, oh, I don't want to trade that ETF. It has such little volume. Well, what about the basket that it tracks? Because that's where the liquidity is, right? And it's always going to be the performance of the basket that equates to the price of the ETF. There's arbitrageurs who keep that basket in check with the ETF price. Back in the day when ETFs first came out, a lot of people made a lot of money doing that. If the basket was a little cheap, they'd buy the basket and they'd sell the ETF because they are one and the same thing. All right, let's get going. Let's keep going here. But I thought that was kind of interesting to see that, because I don't know when they're on halting that name for the study that came out. Let's see if I can says anything here, although I don't think so. And then I'll move on from this. Yeah, it doesn't say. Yeah, it doesn't say when they're going to unhalt it yet. But yes, the FDA approved the drug 6-0. So I would think, unless I'm misinterpreting something, but I would think it would get a little bit of a move higher. All right, so that's healthcare. That was the best group. Home builders were fine today. And then you could see, and also software names were strong. They kind of held their gains. They held up pretty well. Also, tech was up about 0.5% for the session. Names or areas that did not do well, retail, right? A lot of those short squeeze names, one of the things that I mentioned, they could be really fun to trade when the high short interest names really start to squeeze, like the Carvana and so forth. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that a lot of times, once the short squeeze is over, these names will go down. Also, there's a reason why many of these names have a high short interest, because they're not very good names. So you've got to have a very watchful eye on if you're playing in the sandbox of high short interest names, because a lot of times the shorts have a reason, that's a legitimate reason why they're in there and why the name has been going down. So again, don't overstay, in my opinion, not giving out any advice or recommendations in this video, of course, but don't overstay your welcome in a high short interest name. The Carvana went all the way up to $27, back down to 19, right? That's what these names will do. And there's a handful of these names, right? And that's why, XRT, kind of interesting, saw a big call buyer about a week ago. And you could see this thing reverse, right? It took out a big upside target here, Virgin Point of Control, tried to go a little higher, and bearish engulfing, right? This is not a great group of stocks to be in, but it's fun when they squeeze, right? And they caught it, right? Somebody bought calls like all the way in here around 50s, 57, $58. And I don't know if they cashed out of that, but that was a nice trade, kind of a reversion to the mean, or somebody was just expecting that there would be some type of a squeeze, right? In some of these names, like a Wayfair or something like that. Again, keep in mind, XRT is one of those ETFs, so it's equally weighted, right? Don't look at the names and think that there's a bias like there is for example in market cap weighted indices, where Apple or Google make up a big weight. When it's an equally weighted ETF, they're basically all the same, right? But that name's been on a big run too. All right, so here's where we are for S&P. Interesting, because we did get through this 4,300 level. I thought we would kind of stay in that right around the 4,300 level, because it is a big psychological level. You have a lot of options tied to that price of 4,300. But we did get through, right at the end of the week, we got through the range, not by a huge margin, but we did. And Qs, you could see had some trouble getting through the highs of this week. So, perhaps some sellers. Interesting too, that if you look at the performance for the Qs, it was essentially flat for the week. It was down just a touch, but again, gave you plenty of opportunities to trade it. Like if you're, if you like to scalp, and if you're a good day trader, you got plenty of opportunities. If you're a longer term trader or swing trader, then you may not have liked the price action. It's always interesting to me that the type of price action may be very good for some traders and not great for other traders. And here's where IWM is. Again, some overhead supply. I think the sellers kind of won out for here, but it doesn't mean that the buyers can't come in and scoop this up, because the rally kind of really stalled. Well, I shouldn't say stalled, but it's in digestion mode, right? Letting maybe the 5-day moving average kind of catch up here. And again, if now that we have a full weekly bar, that's a pretty good weekly bar, right? We're right in the middle of the value area, right in the middle of the range. So I know a lot of people have all of a sudden gotten bullish on small caps. Am I bullish on small caps? No, not really, because they're just right in the middle of the range, right? That's, when something gets to the point of control of its value area, and this is the 2023 value area, where this is all the activity from 2022, but there's no major edge when something is like right in the middle of the value area. So again, it could continue to 195. That's where price stalled earlier this year. That could be something to shoot for to the upside. But I still think it's going to be a tough type of trade. And also another thing to watch is 192. Now, instead of making predictions, maybe we'll just watch to see if price can stay above this 5-period moving average and follow it as long as it stays above there. Once it breaks back below, right, then it might be changing directions a little bit. All right, so that's a quick summary for the indices. I haven't talked about bonds too much. I think I talked a little bit about it. But they're hanging on here to the bottom of value. 126.26 is the level to watch for the 30-year bond futures. If you watch more of TLT, then it's going to be very interesting to see if this holds. 101.04 is your support, but currently below the 200-day moving average. All right, so I mentioned I would get to a couple things. I think Oracle is going to be an interesting report next week. They've really been rallying. There's been one hell of a lot of option activity, call buying in Oracle. AMD had a really nice day today. I wanted to talk a little bit about the semiconductors, right? We talked about them in yesterday's video. Kind of stalled out here a little bit. I really thought that this was going to kind of take off, but sometimes you got to be patient, right? It may not be today. It may, be sometime next week, but, again, this is a nice looking pattern, right? Price held where it needed to. You've got some type of a flag or pennant formation that's forming for now, but be patient with it, right? It may take some time. It may consolidate a little bit longer before it, before it resolves higher, which it could do. Okay. Performance for the week. As I mentioned, I'll try to keep this video a little bit short. Again, some oddball groups in here, right? So for the week, SPY finished up 0.5%. The small caps did outperform. They were up 1.6%. The Qs were just down very slightly. The diamonds were up about 0.5%. But again, there wasn't that, while it felt like it a couple days and certain areas really had momentum, the overall market did not, besides the small caps, which finished up 1.6% for the week. There you can see the rest of the performance. Actually, this should be in the red here. This is growth, large cap growth finished down for the week, just barely, not much. And again, it's been super strong. So taking a little bit of a break, value outperformed. Look at the areas that outperformed this week. Chinese internets were up 3.5%. Retail, which we talked about, was up 3.2%. The banks were up 3%. Steel names up 2.8%. And oil and gas names were also strong. So a lot of those value areas, but not all. You still had consumer discretionary, which has a big chunk of Tesla and Amazon, and it was up 2.7%. The home builders were up 2.3%. Utilities, haven't seen that in a while, up 2%. They were strong as well. Again, some different areas really did the heavy lifting. I think we did a pretty good job capitalizing on that. We did get long some, I got long some industrials. I got long a few metals names as well. That worked pretty well this week. I have to say. On the downside, interesting solar names. Just nobody, such a tough group. We talk about in TTG trading room that there are some tough groups. Solar is one of them, right? After I've tried to trade a couple times in a sector or group that has tough, I tend to shy away from the group. It's just too difficult, right? That solar group has been too difficult in my opinion. You may find it easier. I still see people posting charts on a couple different names like ARRY. Every once in a while, I'll try a trade in that group, but when I do it, I try to stick to small size. It's just too difficult. The internet names were down 1.2%. Again, breather there. And blockchain was down the worst, some regulation and things like that. And here's the international performers. Looks like emerging markets. Again, I'm missing, my colors are off here a little bit. Not used to putting things back in red, I guess, right? After the run that equities have had. EFA was down 1.6%. That's international developed, and EEM emerging markets outperformed a touch. One other thing I was just going to show, because I like to do this exercise as well, right? Looking at the month to date performers. This is astounding, right? To see this strength, and I'm pretty sure this is the price close month to date. I could double check this, but I'm pretty sure energy stocks are up the most. So I'll do this check real quick. So 05/30 2023. Yeah, maybe there's something wrong with my calculation. It says 8%, and it's saying month to date. Let me just check this 1 second. All right, something's wrong with my spreadsheet there, so that I'll have to recheck the performance there. I've benchmarked to month to date, end of month, but the Bloomberg must be grabbing a wrong price in there or something. So in any event, that's what we have so far for this week. I'll review performance month to date next week. Get that straightened out, but all in all, a big week coming. That doesn't mean, I was a little bit negative about that in yesterday's video. Listen, I don't know what next week holds, but I think that there will be some whippy price action. I did take off some risk today. I took off I think 3 or 4 swing trades just so I can be very nimble into next week, and it could be a very good day trading week for next week, depending on moves. Also, if you get some type of volatility because of one of those events, maybe you get a nice buying opportunity too. So, I think be on your toes next week with all those events, and we'll go from there, guys. And I'll say just finally at the end of the video here, if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, sign up. We start our pre-market session where I really go over some things in detail right around 9-10 in the morning every day. We talk about what to watch for the day. I talk about specific charts and trade ideas. All right, guys, have a great day and a great weekend.